want to hear about these motherfuckers. It's time to go. All I want to do is fucking eat.
We're not practicing to beat somebody. We're practicing to beat everybody.
Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide for 4 quarters. They got to see us in our house for 4 quarters. They got to look us in the eye for 4. This is about us and our family and our house. This is about us. This is our mentality. We ain't backing down. We ain't running. Set a tone, send a message. This is our house. Physical toughness wins in football now. And if you in this room, you got it. And if you come in here, you better believe in it. Because this physical toughness is what makes the difference. Elite focus. That's all I'm doing. The guy across from me, I'm fixing to whip his ass. Not in my box. Not today. It's about us. It's about our family. We attack. You take that helmet and you strike them. And you strike them and you strike them. That's how you get respect.
Now I am going to pick shit out of them. Physically, I want to break them.
Welcome in to the latest edition of How About That Dawgscast, because let me tell you,
that's what I told him.
If it's good enough for Kirby, it's good enough for me. And that is the name that we're going to go with. The biggest news coming out of Athens this last week was that CARSON BECK is QB1 for the Bulldogs. And the thing that made this unusual, I mean, I think we all knew that CARSON was the front runner. He had the best chance. He had the most time in the program. He was the guy, the odds-on favorite to take snap 1 for the Dogs against UT Martin. So the fact that he was named isn't really the surprise. The bigger deal here is that we found out before the game kicked off, which is something that Kirby doesn't always do. I mean, I heard a lot of people make a big deal about it, saying that they were really floored by this decision. I understand that Kirby's he likes to play things very close to the vest, keep everything in the house. But given the situation with CARSON and just the fact that everybody knew he was the odds-on favorite, it doesn't really matter that he made the announcement. And you look at the opening opponent, it's not like even if they got some information about your squad ahead of the game, that it's probably going to have any kind of sort of outcome, make a difference in the outcome of the game. So that's a couple reasons that he might have gone ahead and shared it. And then this might be the most important part, is that CARSON hasn't taken a snap as a starting quarterback in like 4 seasons. So I think it's really good that Kirby stepped up to the mic, made it public, let everybody know that CARSON is the guy that we believe is going to do the best job of running this offense here in 2023. And that way he can just sort of go ahead and get that, let it wash over him and just move beyond it. If there were any hiccup, any sort of rise about, I feel more nerves now than I did, which is highly unlikely, but whatever. Just get all that stuff out of the way and then start to focus on the upcoming game and the season. So with all that said, let's just take a listen. Let's see what Coach Smart had to say about CARSON, because, and I'll have some more to say about this on the backside, because there were a few things in here that really stuck out to me this week.
That's the greatest separator of he and the other 2 quarterbacks, is his comfort level with the offense. And when you have the extra spring and extra fall that those 2 guys don't have, that rep volume is kind of the separator. I mean, he's had an ability to understand a little bit when the defense is doing this and we're in this, I need an answer. And he's had good answers. It's a little hard to judge when you're going against a defense that does everything. We have a lot of volume on our defense, and we throw it at them. And we have a lot of volume on our offense, and we throw it at them. So it's challenging, and CARSON can handle that really well. CARSON is very knowledgeable, very intelligent, one of the smartest quarterbacks I've been around when it comes to being able to handle the volume of offense we do, combined with the defense we throw at him.
That bit there, the second soundbite from Kirby, where he's talking about the volume of the offense, but more importantly, the volume of the defense that they show in practice every day at Georgia. I mean, it's no secret that when people talk about Georgia, they routinely say the best team Georgia's going to play every year is the Georgia Bulldogs. And that speaks to the level of competition that's there. That speaks to the level of volume that they incorporate into the practices. So when you have the ones going against that defense, I mean, we're talking about literally one of the best, if not the best defense in the country. And if you're just not giving them vanilla looks, if you are showing them those blitzes, showing them those changed coverages, showing them all those things in practice every day and getting them used to processing against a defense that's that fast, a defense that's that big, and they're making good decisions and showing you that they know where to go with the football, then what do you think that's going to look like when you take that experience and put it on the field against an opponent that may not be as talented? I mean, it points in a very good direction. It gives you hope that if this guy gets out there and the bullets are live, that he's going to be able to make good choices. Because if he can do it against the Dogs defense, then you have to believe that he's going to be able to make those choices against whoever they play on Saturday. And again, that's a through line for what's going on at the University of Georgia right now. It speaks to the recruiting. It speaks to the talent on the roster. It speaks to just how hard they compete every day at practice. So that really, really stood out to me. The second part of that was where Kirby talked about just how bright Carson is as an individual. And the piece that we've heard Carson talk about this spring, he talked about it a little bit in a couple of different interviews. And certainly since he's been named the starter, is his maturity. He admitted that he had to grow up a little bit. 18, 19, 20-year-old Carson Beck wasn't ready for the fishbowl that is the University of Georgia starting quarterback position. But he feels like he's grown into that position. And when you have achieved that as an individual, if you've learned your lessons, and multiple people have spoken to just how hard he's worked to try to get there, right? How much he grinds in the film room, how much he gets there early and stays late. The sorts of things that it takes to be great. It's like Kirby said a while back, you don't have a choice. If you want to be great, you have to do the things it takes to be great. And that, from every indication, is what Carson has done during his time in Athens. So that makes me feel really good about the quarterback position heading into the season. And there are a lot of people who are, I saw someone ask the question the other day. They're like, how is it that at the University of Georgia, everyone is anointing Carson Beck? They just think it's going to be easy for him to step in and have a lot of success. Whereas when you look at the University of Alabama or some of the other quarterback competitions that are going on around the country, people are not giving those quarterbacks the same benefit of the doubt. Well, I can't speak to those other places, but I can speak to what's happening in Athens. And everything that I've just told you and everything that we have been able to see through reports and heard from the people that are directly involved themselves tell us that the Ducks are lining up for this to be a successful run for Carson at quarterback at Georgia. Now, obviously, he still has to go do this when the lights come on and the band is playing. That's understood. But everything he can do to get ready to be that guy, he's done up to this point. And I think we should all feel pretty good about that. Now, they did ask Carson what it felt like, because Kirby went on to talk about how well the other two quarterbacks have played, Gunnar Stockton and Brock Vandegrift. And to be clear, it has still not been laid out, or at least made public, who the number two quarterback is at this point. According to Kirby, those discussions haven't even been had. But the answer for the starter was clear, so they went ahead and made that announcement. But Kirby had said he felt really good about what he has in the other two guys. And if they had to play, that they could actually win football games with either one of those guys. And I believe it. So if that's the case, and like I said, I believe that it is, then you have to know, or at least assume, that the competition for the number one job, at least for a while, was a very real competition. So when Carson was asked about that competition, his answer really stood out to me too.
I don't think any of us ever really looked at it as a competition. You know, I think each and every one of us were just focused on things that we could do to improve individually, and ultimately that the coaches were going to put who they thought should be out there.
Now, we heard Kirby say that a lot, that I just want them to get out there and do as good a job as they can do, get better every day. And it sounds like coach speak. But when you hear Carson say it, it actually, I heard it a different way. I heard it in a voice, in a tone that speaks to the organization that's in place at Georgia right now and how they go about their business. It's not me against the other guy. It's me against myself. Can we get better every day? 1%. Are we willing to eat off the floor and do the things necessary to be great. That's what I heard when Carson made that statement right there. And again, as if I needed any more sort of push to think that the quarterback position was in good hands, when I hear him say something like that about how, you know, we are really just about getting better. I mean, I feel really good about where he's at and what he's saying right now. So I don't know. I mean, you know, you heard it just like I heard it. You can make of it what you will. But as for me, I feel pretty good about QB1 heading into the season. Now, the title for this live stream, for this video, was I wanted to make mention of some of the impact players for the Georgia Bulldogs this year. And obviously, there's nothing that has a bigger impact on any football team than the quarterback and who's going to be taking the snaps. But everybody knew about that one. I want to put a little shine on a different position, and we won't spend too much time on it. But I did want to bring to the forefront that one of the things that has come out over the last couple of weeks when the press availabilities for the players happened, one after another. We heard from several defensive players this week, defensive linemen. We heard from offensive linemen. We heard from Carson Beck. And, of course, Kirby's not going to come out and say it because he's working on getting those guys to do what they need to do to get better. But it seemed like every other person that stepped to the podium in the last week and a half over in Athens for press availabilities had something great to say about the offensive line. Now, we all know that the offensive line returns a lot of starters. We know that there's some depth there. We know that that is a quality unit. They were a quality unit last year and expected to be one of the best in the country this season. But let's look just a little bit deeper. You had players like Warren Brinson, Michael Williams step to the podium, even Amarius Mims, the presumed starting tackle for the University of Georgia, stepped to the podium. And Mims' phrase was, "This line has the potential to be very special." Warren Brinson stepped up there and said, this is the best offensive line in the country. No, wait. This is the best two offensive lines in the country, meaning that it's not just the front line guys. It's that second group that rolls in, and they love to roll players through on that offensive line. They love to mix and match. Guys kick out to tackle from guard and so on. They have numerous players that are going to rotate through, and everyone expects that unit to be dominant this year. Now, if we're talking about impactful players for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2023, I'm not going to break those dudes out individually because they have to function as a unit. But from what everyone says, that unit or units along the offensive line are doing tremendous work and should be expected to be a really, really strong asset for the Dogs this fall. Now, the defensive line has also drawn praise in a different way. And I normally, being a defensive guy, would spend my time talking about the defensive line because they are vitally important, too, to the overall success of this team this year. But I did want to take just a minute and give those big O linemen the opportunity to get a little shine because, again, oftentimes they're nameless and faceless, and I'm doing it again now. I'm speaking of them as a unit. But we all know the guys I'm talking about. Cedric Van Pran, Tate Ratledge. We're talking about Ernest Green and Austin Blaskey. We're talking about Amarius Mims. So, and Xavier Truss. So all of these dudes, you know, they're out there doing work every day, and they've been handing it to the defensive line. I mentioned that in one of my previous streams, that day after day they had gotten the better of our defensive line until this last scrimmage. And point blank, Warren Brinson and Michael Williams were like, I don't want any of those dudes to put their hands on me, right? Because they are not afraid to strike and move people. And I'm just telling you, I just feel really, really good because it doesn't matter who's at quarterback, but given what we know or what we think we know about Carson, and then we see the offensive and defensive lines in there talking about one another in this way. I mean, that's where the game is won and lost, is along the offensive lines. And if this chatter is correct, if it's accurate, then, you know, we should feel pretty good as Georgia Bulldog fans heading into the season. Now, moving right along, one of the next things that I wanted us to have an opportunity to look at would be, because again, we're talking about impactful players as we head into the season. And without going through the entire starting lineup for the defense and the offense, I mean, anybody can do that. But again, here, I don't want you to just watch the game. I want you to see the game. So when you're watching the Dogs play this week, pay special attention to some of these freshmen that I think have the potential to break out and really do some big things for the Dogs in 23. So let's start at a point of need along the defensive line, given the losses of Jalen Carter and other players over the last couple of years from that unit. Let's start with Jordan Hall. Jordan Hall is the kind of body that Kirby Smart said he had to have when he got to Athens after coming over from Alabama. Georgia had to upgrade their roster both in size and talent. And Jordan Hall is the kind of player that Kirby has targeted since day one in Athens. Hall is a large man, well over 6 foot, close to 300 pounds, and he's going to be one of those dudes that settles in the middle there. But he also has the ability to not only eat up space, anchor down, and hold that run defense, but he has that certain something about him that gives him the ability to push the pocket and generate pass rush from the middle of the defensive line. And especially early in his career here in Georgia, the thing that he's going to be I don't want to say counted on, because he's going to be counted on to play his role every down, you know, whether it's a run play or whatever it is, whether it's a first down or third down or whatever. The area that he might actually see the most success early on is as a pass rusher in situational play. Because if you've got some of the older, more veteran dudes in there on first and second down, but then you need fresh legs to get that pass rush on third down. And trust me, friends, if you've never played, there's nothing that is more tiring than trying to rush the passer. So it is imperative that you can have a big body who can get that push from the middle on third down. And Jordan Hall seems to be that guy. And as he grows into his body, as he learns his technique, as he gets stronger in the strength and conditioning program, Hall has the potential to be one of those guys that can become an all-SEC, potentially even an All-American type player. He has that sort of ability. So Jordan Hall is a guy that I'm just going to encourage you now to keep your eyes open and watch him this year because he's going to play a lot and he's going to play early, partly because of need and trying to generate and build depth along that defensive line, but also because he's just that good and he's earned the right to take snaps at the University of Georgia. So Jordan Hall along the defensive line is the first freshman that I think you ought to keep eyes on. The next one would be Damon Wilson, the edge rusher out of Florida. Now, if you think back to the spring game, Wilson was one of those guys that you had to double check your roster to make sure you were looking at the right one because they were playing so many young players in that spring game. But we did see Wilson flash. He had a couple of sacks in that spring game and another tackle for loss. And the thing that makes him special is his burst and his get off at the snap, but then also his ability to bend his body, flatten that edge, and get to the quarterback. Once he gets there, he's nice and long, and he has the strength to get him on the ground. I mentioned that Jordan Hall could be a guy that would play situationally. Maybe even more than Jordan, that might be the role for Damon Wilson. Because at this point, there are a lot of guys that can get the job done at the edge or at the outside linebacker position when it comes to rushing the quarterback this year for Georgia's defense. But Kirby has come out and said, we don't know exactly who that guy's going to be right now. Everyone expects that Michael Williams is going to have a good year getting after the QB. But when you have that guy on the other side, then obviously that pass rush is that much more potent because you can't escape one side or the other if they're coming from everywhere. So Damon Wilson, when you hear him talk, he's the kind of guy who very much, like CARSON and Jordan Hall for that matter, is very, very focused about his goal and during his time in Athens. he has gone on record and said, listen, I'm not a guy who's about going out. I'm not about hitting the bars or the restaurants or whatever on the weekends. I generally stay in my room. I order in, I eat in, watch a movie or something like that. He's like, because I'm trying to take care of my body. I want to get the most out of my body when I go to lift. I want to get the most out of my body at practice. He is very, very goal oriented in what he wants to get done during his time in Athens. And if they play this young man situationally, and you have quality play along the rest of the defensive line, as we should expect that we will, Wilson is the kind of guy that can really cause a problem for defenses with that acceleration and flat out speed from that rush end position. So we may not see him on every down, especially early in the season, but as we get into the back half of the season, once we start playing games in November, by that point, I want you to keep in mind that we had this discussion about Wilson, because then I expect that he might be a guy that we would see earlier in series or taking whole series as opposed to just playing on third down. So Damon Wilson from the edge position is another Bulldog who's in there as a freshman this year that I think is going to flash and have a big year for Georgia. I think the potential is there for him to have a very impactful rookie campaign between the hedges. So the next player I'd like to mention is someone who's actually had a bit of bad news lately, and that's LAWSON LUCKIE at the tight end position. Now, we all know about Brock Bowers and Oscar Delp, but once you get beyond that, you're looking at LAWSON LUCKIE, who had really made some strides during the spring game and the offseason. Remember, LAWSON was an early enrollee, came in and went through bowl practices, really sort of cut his teeth and figured out what he had to do to be competitive during that time. And then when spring got here, really made a jump and was flashing. He flashed during the spring game, had I think it was like 3 catches for like 50 yards, but he also was big in the run game and the blocking. And with him being injured, I believe it's a high ankle sprain that he's currently dealing with. And if I'm not mistaken, he's going to have the surgery, the tightrope surgery that's going to maybe help him get back. We will see. But he's going to miss 3 or 4 weeks from the sound of it. And that's a tough break for him. But when he gets back, keep him in mind, because you might not think that there's a bit of a depth issue in Athens at the tight end position with everybody, you know, that has been recruited or is there. But during this past offseason, you had a couple of guys transfer out from the program. You still have Brock and Oscar. You have Lucky and Pierce Sperlin. But now you take Lucky out of that equation with his injury. You've got 3 scholarship tight ends that you can trust to get in the game and play. So during the first couple of games, it'll be interesting to see how they handle that tight end rotation and who actually gets the snaps and how Pierce looks when he's in there. But when Lucky comes back, he has shown that he has a big enough body plus the attitude to be a really good asset in the run game as a blocker. And he's flashed and shown us that he has hands and can get down the field vertically in the pass game as well. So LAWSON LUCKIE is someone else that I think you ought to look out for here in 23. And again, we had a bit of a near miss with the next guy that I want to talk to you about, because out of this last recruiting class, again, the next person I'm going to miss is a guy who, or mention is a guy who was a mid-year guy, and that's RAYLEN Wilson. And the thing about RAYLEN, if you've watched any of his tape or if you followed the reports from the bowl season or spring, you know that his greatest asset is his speed and then his physicality. When asked about it directly, RAYLEN said, I think they're going to put me in position to be a playmaker, to make splash plays. That looks like my role on this team this year. And then, of course, we get to the spring game, and what happens? RAYLEN's in the right position, gets the bounce off the hands of the receiver, interception, return for touchdown, splash play in his first time out. Now, granted, that's the luck of the bounce in that situation. But the thing that RAYLEN said was that the coaches are putting me in position. They're showing me how to be where I need to be so that when the opportunity presents itself, I can make those splash plays. That sounds like that's exactly what happened in the spring game. When you take that sort of preparation, that sort of coaching, and you understand how they want to use RAYLEN Wilson inside this defense as a freshman, you can see that he could be a guy that could explode onto the scene for the Dogs this year from the linebacker position, whether it's rushing the quarterback on the blitzes and twists and stunts, or whether it's an interception. The thing about RAYLEN is he's very fast, and he loves to hit. So when he gets on the field, I think he's going to be hard to miss. Now, like I said, he had a bit of a close call. We got a scare after that first scrimmage, but he had a hyperextended knee. Looks like he's going to be fine. And that is great news, not only for RAYLEN, but for the Dogs defense, because I have pegged RAYLEN Wilson as a potential breakout freshman for the Dogs this year. One more I'd like to mention, and you may be wondering why I haven't gotten to this guy already, because it seems like he has been getting all of the buzz all off season, and that would be JOENEL AGUERO. Now, the safety position is going to be a position, well, I say safety. Let me say defensive back from here moving forward, because JOENEL AGUERO is the kind of guy who has the cover skills, the hips and the feet of a corner, but the body and the attitude of a safety. And it sounds like the University of Georgia is going to plug him in that star position where you can maybe get the best of both worlds out of an athlete like AGUERO. At the star position, he's going to be able to cover the slot guy, the tight end guy, the back out of the backfield, or he can come on a blitz, get after the passer, fill the lane in the run game. AGUERO seems to have taken to this role very, very well. And that's, of course, the star position for the more casual Bulldog fan would be the position that Javon Bullard played last year. Bullard has moved back to safety this year, which leaves that slot open there at star. Now, there are other guys that could play that position, but everything says that AGUERO is going to get more than his opportunity to show what he can do and possibly lock down that position as a starter. There will be other people that play there, but AGUERO is going to be put in position and counted on, frankly, to be a guy that's going to take meaningful snaps for Georgia the entire season, much like Malachi Starks did last season. So the good thing is, as a football fan, I'm very excited about that because I know I'm going to get to see a really good player have an opportunity to make some plays for the Dogs. So JOENEL AGUERO. So just to recap it, Jordan Hall, Damon Wilson, LAWSON LUCKIE, RAYLEN Wilson, and JOENEL AGUERO are the players, the freshmen on this Dogs team that I think you need to keep an eye out for and listen for them over the loudspeaker during the game, because I think they're going to be making a lot of plays for the Dogs this year. Now, since we've touched on that and we're talking about impact players and who's doing what, I mean, it's one of those things where when you've got this many young players playing and you're going to count on them to play meaningful minutes, you have to figure out exactly how to get them ready, right? I mean, they're freshmen. Yes, they're on campus, they're practicing, they're learning, but they're still young. Kirby had a little something to say about that, because once you get them playing, they start to develop real world depth, usable reps. And Kirby knows that that is the secret to being good late in the year.
You continue to get those guys really quality reps. And I think that's one of the greatest separators in every program in the country, is who's able to get quality reps for their 2s and 3s from this point forward. Because if you don't get quality reps, you can regress.
I mean, he just told you right there. I had conversations all off season about what it is that makes the University of Georgia different. And the thing that I would always come back to is the recruiting and the talent level that's there and the way they use them. They don't just get the guys on campus and tell them they're not going to play, you got to take a red shirt. No, and Kirby's on record as saying, listen, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And it's just that simple. They're not going to recruit guys that they expect to just hang out for 2 or 3 years before making an impact. It's okay to be young is another one of Kirby's best phrases around this topic. He's going to get the guys out there, teach them how to play, give them that volume that we were talking about earlier on the defense. Start that process in spring and work on it during the summer, during fall camp, when it's hard, right? Get them used to expanding their knowledge base of the defense overall, so that when you get into the fall, not only have you heard about it, but you've been able to practice those concepts against some of the top players in the country, so that when you get on the field on Saturdays in the fall, you're going to be able to execute and make plays in games when it matters. The system is there. They lay it out for you. It's very clear cut. And when I talk about what makes Georgia different, It's obviously the recruiting and the talent that they have there, but it's this process that gets those guys ready so that when they get down into the fall and November, late into November, Georgia is still physical in practice. They're still tackling at practice. They're still doing all the sorts of things that keep those basic football skill sets very sharp and very honed. Whereas if you look across the country, other games in November, missed tackles litter the broadcasts. Defenses seem to get worse as the season goes on. That is not what's happening in Athens, and it's because of the fact that they can still have quality reps thanks to the depth that they've built inside the program. That is not something that every other school across the country has. As a matter of fact, there are only a handful of schools that can say anything close to that. One would be maybe Alabama, Michigan, maybe. So we're really talking about a very, very few schools. You could probably count them on one hand who would feel confident about going more physical late in the season the way the University of Georgia does. And that is what you see on the field in the late season games, in the championship games, in the college football playoff. That is what separates those great teams. I mean, he just told you. And I that's why I love that soundbite so much, because I had been talking about it all off season, trying to let people understand that it doesn't matter if you get one player in the transfer portal to come into your program. That doesn't help the sort of thing that we're talking about here. It's not the kind of thing that's going to solve all of your problems. You have to have bodies and multiple bodies at high talent levels to be able to do the sort of practicing that the University of Georgia is doing right now. And let's just, call it what it is. The Dogs are very, very fortunate to be in that position, but they're not fortunate because of luck or anything else. They're fortunate because they've gone out and done the work, and these young men have decided to come to Athens, buy in. They understand that work works and that you have to get out there and do the kind of things that are necessary to be great. Greatness just does not happen. You have to pay the price. And that's what it's about in Athens. So I got to tell you, I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff here this week. I've talked about a lot of things. And one of the things we keep coming back to is just this through line, right? Toughness, physicality, connection, all these things. That is what this program is about. is about. And I love where we're at right now in the direction of the program. So as we move along, like I said, we had a little bit of news today, and it wasn't good news. Branson Robinson, a running back for the University of Georgia, suffered a season-ending patella injury today. And it is not the kind of thing that you want to hear in a room where you have 5 scholarship running backs and, 3 of them were hurt. Branson had issues since the end of last season, really. First, he had a toe issue. Then he had an ankle injury. And he was just trying to get himself right, and he was so close. But it just hasn't, he just hasn't had the kind of luck that you would want to have. So in the running back room, they're down another man. We now know that we're going to miss Branson for the rest of the year. He's out with a patella injury. So Kendall Milton, Dejan Edwards, Andrew Paul, Cash Jones, Roderick Robinson, become more and more familiar with those names, because you're going to have to get to know them, because the big man Branson is not going to be there right now, at least not until next season. And I hate that for the young man, because every sign had pointed to the fact that he looked really good in training, but it was a bad break. I think Kirby's quote directly, and we can take a look at it here. I think Kirby's quote directly was, it was just a tough break for him. And you really, really hate to see that. I mean, Branson, again, is the kind of guy who just comes in, works hard. He looked really good at points last season, especially in that Auburn game where he had some big runs. And, of course, the touchdowns in the national championship game. And he appeared poised to be right there in that rotation for the top 2 of 3 backs here headed into the fall. But it is not to be this year for Branson. So it is next man up. I mean, injuries are a part of the game, but what makes this worse is that it was a non-contact injury. He was just doing drills, and the body sometimes is not ready and needs a break. And unfortunately, that's what happened to him. But we wish him the very best. We expect to see him back soon as he can be. A full recovery is expected. So on that front anyway, it looks like things are going to be okay eventually for Branson. And that's what we want to hear, because he's a fine young man, and he is really a monster when he gets the ball in his hands on the field. So best wishes to Branson Robinson. We hope to have you back between the hedges very soon. And that brings me right down to something I'm just super excited to share with you guys. And I appreciate you sticking around, because this is the kind of stuff that we stick around for here. Now, notice here on the screen, I can show it for those of you who are watching the video here on YouTube. And if you're listening on podcast, just know that you can go to the Damn Beast Facebook page or visit our channel here on YouTube. Hit up the community page, and you'll find a link to what I'm about to tell you. But I'm here announcing tonight that we have another football giveaway. This is a 2022 Georgia Bulldogs National Championship football giveaway. I have this football sitting back there on my shelf. It looks great. And if you hit the page and you click the link, you can see photos of both sides of the ball. And you have the scores from the perfect 15-0 season on one side, and then you have the national championship logos on the other side. It's a beautiful football. You can enter repeatedly. There are multiple ways to enter. When you click the link, the first thing it's going to ask you for is your email. So as long as you don't mind submitting your email, you can get entered that way. But if you want more entries, you can do that. And you can see all that information once you click the link. So like I said, go to my Facebook page, you'll see the link, or go to the community tab on the YouTube page and look for the link. Click it, check it out, click around, and get entered as many times as you want. We're going to let this run for a while. I didn't want to do something quick and fast. So this entry period is going to run over a month. We're not going to give this football away until the Dogs go on the road for the first time to go to Auburn. So not only that weekend will you be able to celebrate a victory over the War Tigel Plainsmen, but you will be able to celebrate, if you're the lucky contestant here, the lucky winner, you'll be able to celebrate a 2022 Georgia Bulldogs National Championship football. So I'm thrilled to be able to make that announcement to you. This football comes to me courtesy of championshipfootballs.com. So I want to give them a shout out and let you know to check out their website. They've got some really cool stuff. If you like football and your team has won a championship, go check them out, because they've got a ball that will commemorate that event for you. But if you want the free one here, make sure you get entered into this giveaway. This is a $100 value for this football, and it is beautiful. So I would encourage everyone, hit the Facebook page, hit the YouTube community tab. While you're there, just go ahead and follow those pages. You're there anyway. You know that we're doing all kinds of really cool stuff all the time with ADB. So just go ahead, give us a follow over there and check it out. Because when we do stuff like this, you don't want to miss out on your opportunity to get in on the game. So with all that said, since we're talking about the social media, let me also encourage you. I don't know exactly what is going on over here, but for some reason, the people out there in Dog Nation, they just are not seeing our Instagram page. So I wanted to take a second and remind everybody, we do have an Instagram page over here. And just like everywhere else, we are churning out that dogs content, the kind of content that you're only going to get from a Damn Beast Media. We have shorts, we have reels, we have graphics, we have stories, blogs, you name it, that's what we have for you. And the Instagram is yet another way for you to get all of your dog information delivered right to your personal device whenever you want. So I would encourage you, if you're not following us over on Instagram, please head on over there, check it out, and keep in mind that you can find links for all of this stuff in the description below this video. So just click into the descriptions, look around, you will see links to any and everything that you want to know about when it comes to a Damn Beast Media. Now, since we are talking about websites, there's another, really cool kind of thing that I want to mention to you here, because this is kind of new. This is a new development. I mean, it's not, I've mentioned it before, but it's still new. It's still brand spanking new. If you go to the YouTube channel and you look on our channel page there, notice at the top, right beside where it says Georgia Bulldogs Football, a Damn Beast Media, just to the right of that. And if you're on podcast and you're listening while you're out running or driving your car, please don't try to look this up right now. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. But when you get back to your desktop or you sit down to take a break, go ahead, head on over, cruise on over to the Damn Beast Media YouTube channel and look right here at the top. Right beside where it says Georgia Bulldogs Football, a Damn Beast Media, there's a little button that says join. Now that is a way for you to join the channel here on YouTube. And if you do that, you get to choose your level of involvement and support for the channel. And with that, of course, I'm not expecting you to do that without getting anything in return. So when you choose which level you would like to support the channel at, know that you will be getting some fun benefits for being someone who supports the channel and allows us to create the kind of Georgia Bulldogs content that you want to see every day. And believe me when I tell you that we are doing it every day. We have a lot of good stuff in the pipeline. Stuff that's going to be coming to you here soon, some interviews, some exclusive material that you will not see anywhere else. So make sure that you're on board. And if you are supporting the channel, if you choose to do that, just know that that will only help us to do more, bigger, and better things as we move into the future. Now, even if something like that's not something that you're interested in, if you don't mind, please take a second and like the video here on YouTube, share it with your friends. That does a lot. And if you don't mind, drop me a comment too, because I would love to know how I'm doing. Let me know if you're enjoying these live streams and what we're talking about, because we want to bring you the very best Georgia Bulldogs content we can. And the only way to do that is to listen to you, the viewer and listener, because we need to know what you want to see. And if you help me, I promise I'll do what I can to get what you need out there for you. So again, be sure to check in the description below. You'll find everything that you want to see down there. You can learn about channel memberships. We have merchandise, just literally any and everything ADB is what you're going to find down there in that description. So I want to take a second and just say I appreciate you all for being here. We've spent a lot of time this evening talking about a lot of different stuff, Georgia Bulldogs. And until next time, go Dogs.
Told them, how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that.